Here's Brody Brazil.
I'm pretty sure the Dodgers went officially all in the second they signed Shohei Ohtani to the largest player contract in the history of professional sports. 10 years, $700 million. Yeah, like all in for the next decade. Well, guess what? As of tonight, reportedly, they're doubling down on it. They've landed Yoshinobu Yamamoto, according to ESPN's Jeff Passan, for 12 years and more than $300 million. Wow. A lot of people knew in the back of their minds that could be a possibility, but the Dodgers went out and made it happen. Their fans right now must be elated. They must be on cloud nine. But pretty much everybody else in baseball and in sports is at least asking themselves this question in the back of their minds: are the Dodgers ruining baseball? Now, I'm not here to say the answer to that is yes. I'm just here to pose the question, and I'll give some ultimate thoughts to that question at the end of this video. But you kind of look at the way this has played out, what the Dodgers are doing that some other teams won't or can't do, and it's really making a separation in baseball between the haves and the have-nots or the will-nots. Ohtani, 10 years, $700 million. What I think rubs a lot of people the wrong way is the $680 million of deferred money so that the Dodgers don't have to face the full wrath of the competitive balance tax. $46 million a year versus the total $70 against baseball's luxury tax, so they don't have to pay it all. But I will point this out. The Dodgers, in deferring this money, it's not like they're actually needing to not have it right now. The way it works is that they need to funnel in $70 million a year to an account that will eventually pay off Shohei Ohtani. So they are paying this money in real time. It's just that Ohtani is not getting it in real time. It's basically sitting in escrow from the way I understand it. But bottom line is, he did that deal strategically so he could be surrounded by better teammates. And obviously, without any immediate knowledge yet, like I'm sure this stuff will come in the next few days, Ohtani was very much probably part of the recruiting process for Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who comes over from Japan and, again, according to ESPN.com, tonight signs a 12-year, $325 million deal, which does include, in part, that $50 million posting fee to his former team in Japan. And Yamamoto is highly acclaimed. I mean, this literally sounds like the Dodgers are not only getting Ohtani as a hitter for next year. Remember, he's not going to pitch in 2024 due to the elbow injury. But it sounds like they're also getting the pitcher this year that he would have been, and also getting this pitcher for the next 12 years. Now, Yamamoto's 25 years old. He's been in Japan's NPB league for, I want to say, 4 or 5 seasons, but he's got 820-plus innings pitched under his belt. Came in as a reliever, they moved him to a starter, and since then, in Japan, posting a 1.65 ERA. Now, I get it, this is the Japanese baseball league, it's their highest league, but in the same way that a lot of people ask, well, how did Jung-Hoo Lee's stats translate over as a hitter? It's interesting that we think, well, he may only hit 280 versus the 340, which his career batting average is over there. For some reason, we think it's always going to be harder for hitters to come over from Japan and from Korea and have success in Major League Baseball. But in this case, we don't assume that a pitcher will have maybe the same adjustments or whatever. I think there will be some, but obviously these numbers are sparkling. A 5-to-1 strikeout ratio, strikeout to walk ratio. He allows 1 homer every 28 innings pitched in Japan. He sports a 99-mile-an-hour heater to go along with a very good curveball. People have real high expectations for Yoshinobu Yamamoto at 25 years old. And there's no question why Ohtani is the proven major leaguer, the unicorn, the guy that can do both, why he was the top free agent. But for Yamamoto to be listed in so many places as baseball's number 2 free agent this winter, above a bunch of established major leaguers That goes to tell you what scouts have already seen from him in their visits to Japan in person. So let me just quickly go back to the Dodgers situation here. If this is true, if they now have Ohtani and Yamamoto, are they ruining baseball? I mean, yeah, they just won the top 2 free agents of baseball's winter. They spent $1 billion for the next 10 to 12 years, 10 with Ohtani, 12 with Yamamoto. To put that into perspective, like we all know, the Oakland A's situation trying to relocate to Las Vegas, their stadium at a minimum is going to cost from the private side $1.1 billion, from the minimum. And the A's are not yet putting out a way and a plan of how they can come up with $1.1 billion for, hypothetically, it might be a 30-year loan or a 30-year financing plan. Right? So that's for a whole stadium. Not to mention all the team payrolls over the years, but this is the Dodgers saying, okay, how about $1 billion plus for 2 players for only 10 and 12 years? And that's where we start to get into the conversation of haves and have-nots, or haves and will-nots. It's amazing that baseball has become this thing where teams like the Mets and the Padres, and quite honestly, even the Angels and some others, have spent so much money in the last few years. And then there's some teams on the flip side that are almost the exact opposite, reluctant to spend even nearly enough to field the proper team. But that separation is the part that I think fans are a little bit worried about. Now, the Dodgers still also might not be done yet. What other important free agents can they land? Does this also automatically mean that the Dodgers win the World Series in 2024? I want you to think about that for a second. Ask yourself seriously, who do you see right now representing the National League in the World Series and ultimately winning it? You're saying it won't or can't be the Phillies? You're saying it won't or can't be the Padres? You're saying it won't or can't be Atlanta? And I say this right now because they haven't made, hopefully, all their moves yet, but the Giants can't be in any contention here. I get it. At this point, I mean, the Dodgers have won the intimidation factor here. But if you're going to tell me right here, right now, still, that you know for a fact that they are going to win the World Series this next year, I will still tell you you're crazy. Haven't you watched enough sports over the years? Sometimes, yeah, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. But other times, you realize that you can't buy championships. Wasn't it the Lakers back in the day that signed Gary Payton and Karl Malone and tried to put together that team? And did it work? And granted, those might have been players at different phases of their careers. But you can't always buy what you want. In baseball, really in basketball, in football, and hockey, you can't always buy what you want. Sometimes it has to come together organically. Now, again, not here to dismiss the Dodgers. I think they're going to be a very good baseball team. With Ohtani as probably a DH, I heard maybe they would put him out there in left field. And now Yamamoto, obviously, in that rotation. Wow. That's a tough team to go against. And they still, like I said, they still might not be done yet. But it's the question, like, are they ruining baseball by spending so much, by being, so well off, so wealthy, and so able and willing to spend that money? So let that soak in for a second. Here's what I want to say. If you look at the top teams and the bottom teams of MLB payroll lists, it's usually pretty painful. I say that because just look at last year. Look at the top. There's a couple teams that'll make you go, you spent all that money in the wrong ways, in the wrong places. Just look how things turned out. Some stuff maybe you could have seen coming. Other stuff was totally unpredictable. Injuries, slumps, player performances, yeah. I mean, did it work out for any of the top teams? Really, look where Texas was. They were one of the higher spenders, but not the top spender. And look where the Diamondbacks came from. Again, I know that doesn't happen every year, but it did happen last year. And so the very top and the very bottom of the payroll list, like in baseball, it's usually painful because you look at those top teams and go, wow, you threw all that money away. And if you just would have thought things out like the 5 through 10 teams or the 4 through 9 teams, spending-wise, you would have been way better off. But I'm also here to say, and I kind of alluded to it before, like the bottom 5 teams, it's always kind of a painful situation. And sometimes for certain reasons, there's rebuilding, there's restructuring. But let's be honest, in a lot of recent years, the top handful of teams have been the same, but the bottom handful of teams have also been the same. Yeah, the middle changes, really 10 through probably 20, 8 through 18 changes a fair amount. But the bottom group of teams seems like it's always that same group. And so if you're going to criticize the top spenders, I say also put a little bit of attention on the bottom spenders. And I'll get to like a salary cap situation. I understand how that works in the NHL. Baseball has really a soft salary cap. The Dodgers can do this, and they're bending a little bit of the rules with Ohtani and what they will and won't pay towards the competitive balance tax. But it's this soft salary cap where you're not supposed to spend over a certain amount, but you can. And if you do, all it means is that you owe more money to the revenue-sharing teams like the Oakland A's. But I'm also here to say that I'm never a person that wants to limit player salary. I know, like I work under a contract. I want performers to get paid what market value dictates. Yeah, some of these numbers and figures that are going through the roof, but they've always been a little bit scary at the times. Granted, baseball's going through a transitional period. TV money in a lot of regions is a question mark. It's definitely not with Los Angeles and the Dodgers and who owns their team. That Guggenheim Group, man, unbelievable backing for that team and that payroll. But I never want to limit players' salary in all of this. That being said, at some point, is there a way baseball can do it so that you don't have teams running away with the ability to land every important player and other teams are not even forced to go after anything? I get it. We're all looking up right now. But at the same time, if we're going to look up, we should also look up and down and everywhere in the middle. And maybe we can do this in tiers. Maybe there's a way to justify the highest spending teams and something they have to hold themselves to and the lowest spending teams and something they need to do. I mean, yeah, the hard cap in the NHL is interesting, right? I think it's $80-something million, and some years it goes up $1, some years it goes up $3 million. I remember when it was in the low 70s. It's jumped recently quite a bit. But the hard cap is the hard cap, and it causes hard decisions. You can't take a player on necessarily without another team retaining some of their salary because they won't fit under your cap. Like if you really want to be a good team, it prevents the NHL from having like dominant, veteran-laden teams because everybody's got to fit under a certain cap. It makes it more interesting, but then again, I'm not somebody who ever really wants to limit player salary. And I don't want to make this video all about the 100 million creative ways we could figure this out, but is there a way to not limit player salary, but also make sure that baseball's a little bit more competitive from the highest spending teams to the lowest spending teams? Because at this point, like miracles do happen, and the middle spending teams seem to figure it out. They seem to do okay. But it's those top and bottom spending teams that I would really want to try and rein in a little bit, if that makes sense. So there's my thoughts on all of this. If I'm going to answer the question, are the Dodgers ruining baseball? No. Like I said, there's other teams on the other side of the spectrum that you could ask this same question to. And I think that's probably the best way to put it and the best way to leave it. You made it here at the end of the video. You know I appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so I can definitely see you back here next time.